Thanks a million, Deirdre. I think you posed a really timely question for us to respond to. And it's given Tony and me an opportunity really, again, to, reflect on our practice and also to consider how the Change Lab has evolved over the decades. So what we've done is we've focused on three specific areas in which NCAD considers and implements the CAME standards in alignment with the Global Citizenship Education Programme. And this would be through our design and delivery of the Change Lab. So if we can just go to the next slide there. Okay, so first we looked at how CAME standards promote teacher identity and agency as a core element of an ITE programme. So in NCAD, we very much recognise that identity is of integral importance to their practice as artists and designers. And it also is a basis for forming their identity as teachers, researchers. So it's through really this identity that they explore global citizenship education. And then secondly, the CAME document states that providing a site for learning to enable reflective research-informed practice is a key principle of initial teacher education programmes. So I'm going to speak just briefly about the School of Education and the gallery, and then also the classroom as a reflective pedagogical space that nurtures innovative research-informed practice. And then thirdly, Tony and I focused on the core values that underpin the Code of Professional Conduct for teachers, and then how these values also underpin a global citizenship education classroom. So can I move on to the next slide there, Deirdre? Okay, so teacher identity. So in response to Kane's definition of identity, we really see identity as very much a concept and also a process that is evolving within the teacher's understanding of their practice as artists and as researchers throughout the PME programme. And for the student teacher to kind of have agency in terms of creating a sustainable pedagogical approach that is authentic and also critical to embed global citizenship education into the visual art curriculum, they need to really understand it through these three lenses. So the pedagogical approach that frames the Change Lab, this can be directly mapped onto their conceptualization of the visual art curriculum in post-primary. So they work through, this is the student teachers, a process of creating and researching and responding. And these are words that define the pedagogy of an artist, but they're also the three guiding principles that underpin the design and delivery of the new post-primary senior cycle visual art curriculum. So the first stage when they enter into the Change Lab is to support the student teachers, artists to create work drawing from their practice and their identity as artists and as designers. But particular to this year's iteration of the Change Lab, the thinking really had already begun prior to them entering into the gallery space due to COVID-19. So we disseminated a brief over the summer period and we asked them to respond to kind of this moment in time and to capture their experience of COVID-19. So when they entered into the Change Lab space, which was in September, the work kind of moves beyond a visceral and a visual level, and they create personalized work and collaborative work that becomes more critical in how they decode and analyze their imagery. And they also engage in their research identity to contextualize, and then they rationalize their approach to making artwork. So we're supported as well, and this is really important, by experts in the field, such as our colleagues in Ubuntu and also Dr. Jerry Jeffers, I think I can see him there today. And then also from the NGO sector, we work very closely with Tony and Kira in 8020. And this really gives us a deeper understanding of the issues we're exploring. So the student teachers' research and how they research is very much through an arts-based approach. And this is about honouring the practice of making artefacts as an integral part of the research process. So then the third phase of this cycle is to engage with their teacher identity. So they use this experience of the Change Lab as a point of departure to create a unit of learning. And in reference to Professor Gary Granville, they very much draw from their understanding of their art practice as being inherently pedagogical. So how they think, how they contextualize, and how they make work as artists and designers informs their methodology really of how they teach it in classrooms. So then the next slide there, Deirdre, as well, linking sites of practice. So this is in reference again to another key principle in the CAME document. And in NCAD, again, we provide sites of practice that nurture reflective research informed teaching and learning. So firstly, there's the School of Education. as a site, and this is where they conceptualize their understanding of curriculum and they build their professional identity as an artist educator. And then there's the Change Lab, and this is activated in the gallery space in NCAD, and this becomes a lab space. So it's all about exploring and changing practice. And this emerges as a kind of a lecture space. It's also a research studio and a making exhibition space. So this affords, again, the PME student teachers as artists with a pedagogical space and a place to use as kind of a texting ground to create really collaborative work that explores the potential of art as a social commentator. So this year we put particular emphasis on the potential of the Change Lab as a research site. And this was to question the role of research within their practice as artist teachers. And one of the overarching questions we posed was what processes inherent in their pedagogy as artists shape their teacher researcher identity. And then finally, we move beyond the hierarchy of the initial teacher institute and they move out into the classroom. And this very much becomes a site of innovation where they make meaning and they put into practice the experience of the Change Lab. And then they also create a sustainable pedagogical approach where they explore global citizenship education through the lens of visual art. So then the final slide there. Thanks, Deirdre. So again, what we wanted to make as well, the connection with the core values that underpin the code of professional conduct for teachers, and also then the values that underpin a global citizenship education classroom. So we strive to create a learning environment within the experience of the Change Lab that's very much true to the ethos of global citizenship education. So it's a methodology that really instills kind of values of trust, integrity, care and respect for each other. And as the student teacher artists work together, they create work that responds to a specific social justice or a human rights or an environmental theme that matters to them and also matters to their students.